Okay guys, Chevy Avalanche here with some really heavy scratches. You see here they're really jagged, the edges. So I filled in here and I wet sanded down. I'm going to polish out. We're simply just trying to get within those jagged areas. So what I did was I laid down the touch-up paint really lightly, just kind of dropped it on and let it do its thing, let it work inside. See how you can see how it kind of worked itself into those jagged edges? That's what I wanted. I'm not trying to go in here and do anything crazy, just going in so it doesn't rust. And of course I'm going to sand down these areas here that are a little bit excess. But for the most part, we got into all those jagged areas, which is most important to seal it off to make sure that this rust doesn't start eating away at the panel. So I'm gonna hit it with, gonna sand it down a little bit more, polish it out, and show you guys the results. Okay, so again, here we were before, real deep jagged areas. So I applied the paint the first time. This is a metallic paint. I mixed it with the clear coat, so basically it's a clear coat and the base coat mix. It has metallic in it, so you know that's another variable that makes touch-up paint a little bit more tricky, but it was still a bit transparent when it went on, so meaning I had to put another layer on. So what I did was I put the first layer on, wet sanded it down, polished it, pretty much got it to where it was almost level, and then I applied another layer. So this other layer is now going to match up a little bit better. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry out, then I'm going to wet sand this one, and then we should get a lot more, you know, it should fade in a lot more. This is, you know, in no way am I a pro at touch-up paint. It's a service I provide here and there, and it's usually for smaller isolated areas. These are pretty big. These gashes are pretty big. This is a very good client of ours. She's really concerned with this vehicle. She really wants to preserve this vehicle. It has a lot of sentimental value to her. She doesn't want to have to get it painted. So I told her, hey, we can go through. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to look a whole lot better, and we're going to try to disguise it as much as possible. So we're not chasing perfection, guys. We're just trying to clean it up. So as you can see, the color match is a lot better. So with the color match, now all we have to really focus on is leveling. We want to make this as level as possible to get the best. We want to make it as level as possible, and we want to get it as cleaned up as possible. Usually these pens suck for the touch-up paint, but in this case it's so deep it's actually setting in there nice, because you want it to go on thick. With it being a metallic, what happens is sometimes that paint starts getting heavy on the bottom and you get all the metallic and all the flake on the bottom. And then it's kind of almost like a candy looking color on the top, which means it's a clear, you know, a clear looking paint of the color, but there's no metallic. This is actually filling in very well. So filled in nicely with this. This is actually working better than most of the tools that I use. So here's that first one still that we need to sand down. And then here's the second one. But as you can see, just from a distance, we're looking way better. So I think she's gonna be happy. Either way, like I said, I'm not a pro at this. I've done some really good touch-up work in the past, and I've also done some really bad touch-up work in the past. So it's not something I do often, because the services that I do provide, I want to make sure that they are A1. But this one I will provide to certain clients, and this is a special client and a special vehicle. Expectations always need to be managed, especially when doing something that's, you know, a little bit out of your scope of work. As a beginner, I kind of tried to dip into touch-up paint, and I actually did fairly well, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. And I'm not, you know, I've already been working on this one for about 35 minutes on these two little ones. So, and I still got to do sanding, and I got to remove the sanding marks, level out, polish, refine. There's a lot. So, but like I said, special car, special client, we're going to take care of her. I'll show you guys the finished results in a second. So here's the big boy. This one here is really heavy. And if you guys are wondering where I got the touch-up paint, I always go directly to the dealer, give them the VIN number, and depending on the vehicle and the popularity of the color, and if they have the color on site, you can pick it up same day. This specific color took us quite some time to receive. They only make the GM colors in one place in the US, so we had to wait for it to get sent back from like the Midwest. So it took about 2 weeks to receive this. So if you are planning on doing any touch-up paint work and you want to get the OEM paint, just make sure that you give yourself some time in between. All right, so we're just going to do that all the way down. And when we're using the pen, we're tapping. We're just tapping. We're letting the gravity pull it down, and we're letting the physics of the liquid actually kind of, I'm only putting pressure because when I push down on this little tip, that's when it dispenses. But if I don't need to dispense, I'm not going to do that. See here, I'm just kind of dragging the bead. If there's excess, you just kind of drag the bead lightly. You just use the physics of the liquid. That's it, guys. All right. Also, guys, a steady hand really helps too. And here's the final look at the scratch after. I don't know if you can see it. Still there. See him? But just cleaned up a whole lot better. Again, not a cosmetic specialist when it comes to touch-up paint, but we just wanted it to look better. Client's happy. You can still kind of see it there, but so much more disguised, and the rust is not going to advance anymore.